Hey, what is up, friends and fellow anti-netters? It is I, Scott Scheper here. It is a Thursday evening at 6:56 post meridium. I just got done with an absolutely awesome interview slash what do we even call this? It was like a kind of a it was a mix between like a one-on-one anti-net coaching session, but really it was just a nice little dialogue back and forth, and learning from a fellow anti-netter. And this interview is kind of more of like a podcast interview style. It was with a guy named Lane. He is an anti-netter he's not a complete noob. He's set up his anti-net like maybe about a month ago. He's maybe a month and a half into it. It seems like, and it was a really awesome interview. We talk about, in the beginning we talk a lot about like Obsidian and Rome Research and digital Zettelkasten and our gripes with gripes with the digital format. Because digital doesn't work for everyone, and I think like how the way that the Zettelkasten is positioned today, it really it makes it seem like the system really was a meant to be in a digital medium, and it really is a digital medium. And in fact, I argue that it is the exact opposite. And so, anyways, in the beginning, we talk about a little bit about digital, and we talk about the anti-net, and then we kind of bounce around a little bit, and we talk about just more general like intellectual knowledge development stuff and growing in this journey that I think we can all that a lot of people will resonate with and find a lot of familiarity with is, we're on this intellectual quest or this professional quest of creating knowledge, and where do you even go? It's like the dichotomy between creating definite, clear goals and creating, going after a target, and also the dichotomy between that or the opposite end of the spectrum is like letting your reading and your emergent discovery of material do kind of dictate what you actually create. And we talk about that. We talk about, things like maps of meaning and a book written by Jordan Peterson. We joke about that a little bit in it. And you know, towards the end, definitely stick around and listen to it. And towards the end, we get into the Lane's Zettelkasten, his anti-net, and we go through what he's learned in his journey. And so check it out. I hope you enjoy this interview, this video, and please let me know in the comments below if you like this type of interview, if you want to see maybe a round two with Lane and I talking about stuff and getting deeper into a certain area or a subject. And let me know if you learned a lot, and if you liked this style of a video, and let me know any other thoughts that you have. Anyways, I'm going to kick it off into the interview, and it's a long one. It's like I think it ranges around 2 hours. It's kind of like a free-flowing Joe Rogan type of interview, and maybe who is that other guy, Lex Friedman, how he interviews people, and kind of flows more like that. So maybe if you want to go clean your house or apartment or wherever you are and listen to it, that's fine too. And regardless, I hope you enjoy, and thank you for being a part of this journey so far with this YouTube channel. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to the video, and let's keep this train going. The anti-net revolution and the movement is getting bigger, and let's keep rolling with it. Anyways, peace and love. Talk to you later. I'm going to cut into the interview right now. Later. All right. Well, I'll just give a little summary to the audience. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and anti-netters out there. This is I, Scott Scheper, and we have Lane here. Lane is another fellow anti-netter that I guess you stumbled upon this and me through my YouTube channel. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I think I found you through your old blog, but
Yep.
and then I looked you up on YouTube because I know she had a
Gotcha.
YouTube tag, and then I was like, what's this anti-net shit?
Yeah.
I'm gonna check this out. And then I got sucked into it for like a week.
Yeah. Yeah. So well, yeah, and Lane and I guess, I'm kind of talking to the audience now, as Lane and I were just chatting and discussing. And you know, one of the things, I'll just give the audience a little bit of context and background is, you know, you submitted um, on my Google form and I read it, and you know, you had used and tried Obsidian for a little bit, just like I had. And you're not like a complete noob and beginner to this whole Antinet Zettelkasten, you know, analog Zettelkasten realm. And this kind of like, I feel like the Antinet is like, it's like a branch off the matrix from the matrix. It's like we forked off the matrix into like an even crazier, more pure matrix,
Yeah.
if you know,
It's God
and
Matrix.
yes, exactly. Yeah. And so so you're not a complete noob. You're pretty intermediate. And I think you have a very interesting um kind of you know, like focus and goal, which is essentially, I think you said poetry and literature and yeah. So I think like what you just said right before we jumped on this and started recording is you don't necessarily have a total how to, but you want to just you kind of go a free spanning direction of just, you know, picking, just talking shop on knowledge management. I don't like to call it knowledge management, by the way. I call it knowledge development systems. And you know, because the whole PKM thing has kind of gotten too buzzwordy. And but yeah, so yeah, but just talk shop and talk intellectualism stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, and go from there.
Yeah,
So
I have I feel like I've gotten it down, and I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and this has been very rewarding for me too. Your reminders in a lot of your videos is like, you know, you teach it, and you know, I understand like, hey, you want to get this right, but dude, I have so much whiteout numbers and stuff
oh
because
yeah,
I'm like,
same
oh,
here.
okay, I actually did that wrong. Let me come back. And I used to would be like, throw out the card, start over, and I'm like, no,
Yep.
just let it reflect my personality, the chaos of like my own trying to, oh, that's not the order I wanted it in. And it doesn't have
Yep.
to be in order, but I want it like that. So I'm going to do it. And I'm going to
Yeah.
follow Scott's lead, but I'm not going to be so anal about it that like I'm
Yeah.
frustrated. And so
Yeah.
it's
It
been a
it
very pleasurable thing.
yeah, it definitely curbs the anti-perfectionism tendencies that I think that's what, you know, like I can get I totally tend to major in the minor when it comes to, I remember building out my Obsidian, you know, system. And you know, I remember hearing about atomicity, you know, and like,
Mhm.
and then like I like created like, you know, there would be like a sequence of notes, and then I would like, you know, I learned like the hotkeys of where you can copy the entire paragraph and then immediately spit it into a note, you know, like
Yeah.
I forgot, you know, what it was. But and then I started like doing that. So like every, you know, note was just like 5 links and then like spitting it out. And I'm like, wait, what am I doing? It was like, and man, like it was like, I think I had like over 1,000 notes, and I was just majoring in the minor. And I was like, then I was refactoring my notes every 2 weeks of like, oh, I should do it this way because I learned this. And I would like
Mhm.
organize my notes, you know, into different folders and stuff. And then that's like one of the it's one of the, I think the greatest benefits of the analog system is it enables you not to focus on like you know, majoring in the minor, right? Like you're going to make mistakes, but you're going to evolve around it. And you know, it helps curb that anti-perfectionist tendencies. um if you want, I was, so you know, I'm in the middle of writing the book on the Antinet, just to like, you know, just and it's, the book is like really evolved into something bigger than I initially thought it was. But yesterday I was writing, and I came across some of my old cards that I used, and they're actually, you know, it's like mistakes. I can show you them if you want to right now. Yeah, just in case. Yeah, why don't, here, I'll just show you it. Like
Yeah.
I when I first started, it was like I did, like I had the numbers like 5424 or something slash, instead of 1 2 3 4 5, I started and I went 5424 slash A B C, and it's like, I'm like, I do not do that at all anymore. I start with like the
Yeah.
numbers, but it still works. And it's like, and it's, you know, here, I'll just show you it real quick.
Yeah.
ones, 5424. Yeah, here they are. Like, first of all, this was on like, so I created these cards. First of all, they are on 3-inch by 5-inch cards, which I don't use anymore, right? Like after I learned that Lumen used A6 cards and 4-inch by 6-inch. But I don't know if you could see the IDs, but in the top you can see 5424/L.
Yeah.
The next one is 5424/M. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I do not do this anymore at all. Like I do the letters, I do as, and look at that white out there, too.
Yeah.
The letters were like, variations. Now, now I would do 5424/1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you can just insert it in there. Yet, even though this is like a mistake and not perfect, it still works long term. You just evolve around it and it still works. And it actually, these are actually cool to see mistakes because you've seen how much you've grown, number one. And
Yeah.
also it's like, you've seen that, like I used a lot of this content yesterday for my book, and I wrote these notes a year ago. Right. And then like I've expanded upon them. And so it's like the fact that I got the numbering scheme a little weird or wonky, it doesn't matter at all. What matters is the actual content and you developing your thoughts and developing your mind by writing by hand.
Yeah.
And I think the the digital systems and Obsidian and Rome, like they get so obsessed with like the workflow and hotkeys that they don't really, they spend at least half of your time thinking about new ways of creating notes instead of like 100% of your time actually developing your mind and your thoughts, and focusing on the content. So yeah.
I basically I've always thought this way. So this naturally just spot on. I mean, I'm good at synthesizing across lots of different domains. I'm interested in a lot of different things. One minute I might be studying physics, next minute, poetics, and I've always been that way. And I wrote, and I would index my journals and stuff, but it was so overwhelming because I'd be like, God, I have no idea. I have a glimmer that I wrote something about this. And, I have 50 journals, that I've written in, and I could never find the information. So Obsidian to me was like, oh, this is going to save me. I'm going to be able to find stuff because I can do a search. And it did prove well for that. But what it didn't prove well is for developing and finding insight between connected notes, because you can see the links, but it's almost like more of a cataloging of ideas. I don't know. It didn't work.
Yeah.
So when I came across your system, I looked at what's his name that did the note thing, Smart Notes, or whatever, Arns or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I didn't read him. I watched a video and I was like, this guy's full of shit, just off the bat. For some reason, I was just like, I didn't like him, but I came across yours and I was like, this makes complete sense. And I've been happy so far. I mean, that's something I wanted to ask you about is, you have a very focused, scholarship right now, so to speak. And I have something I'm working on, a framework that I'm developing, but I'm still exploring a lot of different ideas. And it's kind of difficult because, the ideas I'm exploring keep coming back to cognition and creativity. And that's where my framework is. And it's like everything I read, I put into a lens of that. So did you, like when you were kind of, you said you're very focused on the book, so you're in kind of in the luminesque kind of area right now, but you also said when you first started, you like reading across all things and stuff. When you read something and you have an interest, like let's say I'm reading something on biology, I will find a way, which is a good thing, to connect that to some creativity, creative problem solving, or cognition. And I feel like that section is just getting out of hand. And I'll read something in social science, my poor little social science section, topic card, is not filling up. It's like everything's going in there. So
yeah,
how do you view that?
Yeah, and good point. Like, and I, I forget where I've said this, but I've said it is when I started, so I really started doing these handwritten note cards like 15 years ago in college
Mhm.
because I was like about to graduate and I'm like, oh my God, like all of the really, you learn a lot of stuff in college that's like kind of irrelevant, but then you learn some brilliant insights that
Mhm.
you're gonna forget. And I had that fear of forgetting all of these really interesting things that I learned in like, communicate in like communication studies and finance and marketing and all that stuff that I was like, I know that the second I, graduate, I'm going to forget all this stuff. So I started, doing that, but I didn't have a good, I didn't know about the Zettelkasten at the time and Lumen system. So like after 15 years, it just got like, there was no way to actually find a lot of the stuff. I just had to do maintenance rehearsal and just randomly go through everything. Now, when I really, uh, you know, took the red pill into the Antinet, the
Mhm.
like a year ago, I didn't know, like I wasn't planning to, and I didn't, intend to, and I wasn't working on creating the actual book on the Antinet, and that's what led me in the first place to create the whole the really organization system or classification system, the rough classification system, by the way, around the academic disciplines, because
Mhm.
I looked at Stanford's way of classifying information. I looked at various taxonomies, and then I found like the Wikipedia outline of the academic disciplines, and I actually found that to be like one of the best ones out there, and it's kind of like essentially crowdsourced and very comprehensive. So the reason that I decided to map my system around the academic disciplines in the first place was because I didn't have a clue of what I was going to actually develop or do. I had a rough
Mhm.
inclination, or a rough inkling at the time, and it centered on like my background is in copywriting and marketing and writing, and also I was reading some books on psychology and Abraham Maslow, and a book called Transcend, which is a fantastic book about psychology and human desires and stuff like that, right? And then
Mhm.
I started really getting into philosophy, and philosophy, a lot of it talks about human desires and there's like a bunch of things that I found linked together, and I was kind of like, I'm like, man, like especially with marketing too, and getting inspiring people, that I was like, how do I link all these together? And I went back to using my notebook, my like commonplace notebook at the time, because I felt like I was developing everything way better, developing my knowledge way better. And then and but it was a kind of a rough idea, and I was like, how do I attach all of these things? And I've like kind of like you, I cross disciplinary, and interdisciplinary, so that's why I kind of created this in the first place.
Mhm.
Now, what I will say is this, is that I really noticed the power, and really noticed the the Antinet really starting to take off and proving how valuable it was when I decided about maybe May or June of last year to just focus 100% on writing a book related to the Antinet.
Mhm.
And
Makes
then,
sense.
and then this box, which is essentially the Antinet box, this is like 4214 and 4212. This started with like, it was really just like the size of these cards right here, because I can tell because they're like the bright orange, which I used around the time, right? And then this, like, it just emerged and grew inwardly,
Mhm.
and so um I really noticed things, and this is kind of how Lumen uh used it as well, and a lot of people forget. I think it's good for, the system is great for, like, for the first, I don't know, six months, let's say, or so. um Maybe not even 6 months, maybe 4 or 5 months. I was using it and kind of doing it how, maybe how you're doing it, or using the system how you're using it, is I would find bits and pieces, and I would place them in the different sub disciplines, the different branches, right?
Yeah.
And they would get, like, the core idea would be there, but a lot of the stuff was just what Lumen would call like ruminant material. It was just a collected material that that if I decided that I wanted to write about that,
Yeah.
then at that point I could process it. There would be like lit references to certain concepts, and I didn't necessarily make main cards yet.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing happening, like, under my mythology and stuff, because I'm reading some stuff on that. That's all my
Exactly.
green cards. That's definitely my excerpt. And
Yep.
then, when I get into cognition and everything, that's all my ideas, right?
I see.
Although
So
I'm
you're writing
reading,
main cards, basically. You're writing like
yeah,
reflections and reformulation notes.
yeah.
Yes,
So
exactly.
like,
Exactly.
I'm just to show people how messy. I don't care, right?
That's not messy. That's like,
Yeah.
because
So
it's the crazy thing is once you so maybe we should take a step back, is like, and you may not have a clear idea or a goal, but like I can see that from that note, that you just showed me, and from
mm,
those sequence of notes, when you actually sit down to write that into a book, or write that in a book or a paper or something, um, that is going to blow up and turn into like, because when you write the book, you're not just copy and pasting,
mhm,
those notes. You're essentially rewriting it, rephrasing it,
building
re-explaining
on it.
it, because you're trying to understand what you've written it as well. Because I'm going through
Mhm.
this when I'm writing the book right now. And then on top of that, you're coming up with more examples and making it clear, so that note card, that even that just that one is going to turn into like, a page or two of information.
Yeah.
And I think that's also what made Lumen a publication machine, and how he like created so much prolific content, is because I don't know what it is, but the note cards essentially act as a cue for you to like just really, um, you know, clarify your content and spit it out. But anyways, I
It's
think,
very Oh, go
yeah.
ahead. Finish your thought.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say one thing I do want to touch upon and talk about is goals, is kind of like figuring out what your goals are. And
I'm scared of my goals, Scott.
hey, I
They're
was
so
too. It
big
was
and it's
yeah, yeah, I was too. It was like, and it's funny, it's like right before I started writing the Antinet book, I was reading the hero with a thousand faces, which is kind of
Joseph
mythology.
Campbell.
Yep,
Joseph Campbell,
exactly.
I love him. Yeah.
It's on my desk back there. And so I
That
have,
was transformative me at 24. I read that while I was in Amsterdam,
yeah.
smoking weed and hookers and
Yeah.
everything, and it completely changed my life. I'm sorry,
I
dude.
I
You
I
cut that out.
I don't know. I'll leave it in. I never click it's for the kids, these videos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully not.
Um yeah,
My bad, audience.
especially if you're smoking weed while reading that video, it's got to be even more mind blowing, because that's
It
not an easy
was.
book to
It
read.
was
Like
completely.
he just jumps around all over the place. He'll be like, talking about Gilgamesh's sister, and then the next
Yeah.
moment he'll be talking about some other like Native American myth, and he doesn't even explain what he's the jump.
Well, I grew
But
up Southern Baptist, dude, in the South, and to read that book uh, completely, I literally came back from my travels after reading that book, and I pretty much like, you know, told everybody, it's like, I don't believe in God anymore, because it was already something I was
yeah,
struggling with. And
yeah,
that really cemented it for me. And I lost a lot of friends and family and stuff after that, but
yeah.
whatever.
It's funny. Yeah, that's what happens when you start to read.
That was a
you know, epiphany.
epiphanatic book for me, no doubt.
Yeah,
Um,
that's interesting.
yeah, I think obviously I'm all into creativity. My background is was literature and theology, and then I left school for a while and I came back and got my BFA in poetry, and then I went and got my master's in creativity innovation. So I've studied creativity from a scientific standpoint,
Oh, interesting.
and so that's the reason why I'm into the cognition side of things. But my background is I started as a copywriter in an ad firm.
Oh, really?
I worked in marketing and owned my own agency for about 15 years. And the last 10, I don't write anymore. It burned me out, writing for
Hmm.
others, writing for persuasion, writing to sell product, writing to, and it took away something soulful for me, that the that the Antinet has given, not even journaling for the past 10 years has given me. This is really giving me. That's one of the reasons why, yeah, I have a lot to learn from you, but you know, from your videos, I mean, guys, you can learn this from his videos, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But I wanted to meet you to say thank you, one, but two, to, you know, like I said, mine your mind, to kind of go out into the more the ether, the meta of these things, because you know, the quote unquote guide rules or whatever, numbering, this is, hey, put it, you know, blah blah, this is how you number, this is how you branch off. I got that, right? I'm interested in like what we're going to talk about, your, you know, like focus, goal, even like, hey, when do you know I'm ready to start writing articles, but I obviously have an old block there that I'm
Hmm.
scared to put out my intellectualism. You know, what about if it sounds stupid, you know, because this is constantly developing, right? As you say in
Oh
your
yeah.
videos, like you trace your thought and how you're developing and getting more insight and more on it, you know. And
Hmm.
so when did you start feeling comfortable? I mean, maybe you didn't have my block of like not wanting to write anymore. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, so two things there is there's the number one is what you said about being a copywriter, and then there's the which I'm gonna share a thought that the old late great Gary Halbert said
Good
once.
old
And
Halbert.
then yeah, yeah. And then there's then there's the aspect of like, how do you know when you're done researching and reading to where you're actually ready to start putting pen, or
Perfect. Yeah.
really not even necessarily pen to paper, but because you've already
Finger
done
to
that,
finger to
but
board.
finger to keyboard. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the first one is this, is that, you know, like, I think Gary Halbert once said, and he was talking about to like some audience, he was like, you know, copywriters are the biggest prostitutes, you know, in the world, and
Oh,
even more
absolutely.
prostitutes than prostitutes, because what you are agreeing to do when you're a copywriter is essentially persuasive writing, you know, or it's
Yeah.
salesmanship in print, right? Or
Yeah.
salesmanship multiplied. um, and when you are a copywriter, the number one thing and the most important thing, like 96% of your time should be spent on um, talking to the audience, talking to the customer, and getting in their mind.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you take on a client, if you're selling like, you know, like, you know, like diet pills, you know, you're talking to people that literally want to lose weight, you know, without lifting a finger and doing a thing. So you're like
Yeah.
prostituting yourself and spending all of your brains and mind's time and energy getting into the mind of someone that wants to lose
Yeah.
weight without lifting a finger. And so you're essentially like prostituting your soul and your
Yeah.
mind to living in
You
that
are.
person.
You really are.
And
People don't
you know, that's
understand that. That
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
been in it. You know, I quit when I was asked to write copy for children. That's when I quit, because I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
I'll give the benefit of an intellectual person. Like I'll talk to my wife sometimes. I'm like, I know this commercial is what it's doing because I've
Yeah,
studied this. It is a
yeah,
craft. I know what it's doing. And damn, whoever wrote this is good, because I'm going to go fucking buy it.
yeah.
Because
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
but
exactly.
it is, I mean, yeah, you're not only getting inside the mind of them, but you are really playing some really deep psychological
Yeah,
darkness to, you know, it's a you're a dark art master if you're a good
yeah,
copywriter, in my
yeah,
opinion. And there's some
yeah,
fabulous out there, but
yeah.
I
Y-
don't
y-
I don't want
That's
to do that
why
anymore.
it, yeah, that's why it's like I only do it for products I actually truly deeply believe in, you
Yeah.
know, and
I'll do
it's
it
just
for
like,
myself, my
yeah,
business, but
yeah,
I
exactly.
don't, I won't pimp it out, prostitute it out
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. So yeah, you are not unique in feeling that, and it's certainly understandable. You know, it's what Gary Albert said. You know, I mean, he was
Yeah.
selling everything, you know, like he
Oh,
was
he's a
selling, like,
master.
people get into like selling water, you know, like, you know, those
Yeah.
like water
Yeah.
systems that like
Water
have like the
systems.
yeah, there's fluoride water or something. But yeah, so yeah, I just wanted to
But did it ever
echo
zap
that.
you? Did you ever come out of that at any point? And it like, you know, I mean, I come from a very creative background, creative writing, poetry. So to use that for, you know, business, after a while, kind of sucked out even the joy of any writing for me. And I'm trying to climb back into my writing. I like writing
Yeah.
intellectual stuff. I like writing creative stuff. So did you ever
Yeah.
hit a I don't believe in blocks, but did you ever hit a plummet like in your writing from?
Um, yeah, I mean, essentially I stepped away from writing like copy for like one of the products. And one of the things is because I honestly I just stopped believing in it anymore. And
Mhm.
when I stop believing, if my heart's not in something, I'm not going to sell it. I'm
Yeah.
not going to write copy for it. Like I put my heart and soul into stuff. And so that's kind of why I pivoted, into this whole Antinet and this whole, Zettelkasten space is because I'm like, man, it doesn't really logically make sense to try to necessarily build a business on this space or something.
Mhm.
Um, but like I'm like, man, there's just something here. It actually works. Like the writing by hand, thinking systems and all that stuff, it just works. And so
It's a whole
um,
system. It's a holistic system you got going on here.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
definitely.
It's not
Yeah.
just a Zettelkasten. It's something beyond that, and even
Yeah.
beyond what you talk about lumens, like Ghost in the Machine or whatever.
Yeah.
It's something
Ghost in a box.
completely, yeah, Ghost in the Box. I was thinking of the police.
Yeah.
Um, but it's something, it's something way beyond that. It's something therapeutic, at least for me. Um, I don't know. And the way you talk about it, it's excitement. So uh, the doing the Antinet for you, especially on your focus, your goal, the lumen, the Antinet, uh, is that like by doing it? Like what point did you like? Okay, I'm gonna write a book on this. Was it like after you'd done it for a while, or did you have that goal? I'm gonna write a book, and then the research and doing the Antinet and seeing your train of thoughts and your branches stuff gave you the confidence to write the book? Or are you just a
Yeah.
ballsy guy that's like, I'm fucking writing it regardless? Some people are like that.
um, Honestly, for me, it was from I took this course called Linking Your Thinking
Mhm.
about a year ago. I don't know if you've seen his YouTube videos,
I
and
almost took it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He takes the it's basically it's kind of like a gateway drug for becoming an Obsidian ninja
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And so I took that, and then that was really interesting to me. And I like met, like just because you were on Zoom calls and you see like faces of like, hundreds of people that are, like librarians and stuff and knowledge workers that are really trying to understand, what he's saying and doing.
Mhm.
And I learned some like, pretty good principles from him. And I also, I bought like the highest option for the course, and I got like, just to get training and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And yet then I read after because I think he mentioned Sankey Arons's book, and that I want to I don't want to like brush over that point. Like I saw all these really cool awesome people, like these knowledge workers and librarians and people that were researchers and academics that were actually going to be creating like some really amazing breakthrough work and genius level
Mhm.
work right in their fields. And I was like, wow, this is a really cool audience, a really cool group of customers. Like I came from, my last company was in the cryptocurrency space, and there are some really cool people in that space as well. But then, like, I would say the vast majority of them were just speculators. They just wanted to get rich with sitting on their ass, doing
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
And here I was surrounded by a completely different audience, which was like knowledge workers and people that actually want to create something, themselves and impact the world. And
Mhm.
then, so I was like, oh, that had a really nice imprint on me. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But I was like at that point not interested in creating a book on the Antinet or any of this at all. What
Mhm.
did it for me was I read the How to Take Smart Notes by Sankey Arons.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is that he has like the world's worst, just most basic tutorial on how the analog Zettelkasten
Yeah.
worked, but that was enough for me to get started.
Yeah.
And oddly, he says, like he was like, oh, I prefer the digital Zettelkasten for its mobility, and that's he just brushes over it, and he's like has a paragraph or a sentence or two on how the actual analog Zettelkasten worked. And
Yeah.
so from there, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to practice how the analog Zettelkasten works, just so I can apply any of the principles or anything I'm missing or learning to Obsidian. But then when I started, I was like, holy crap, this is where the magic is at. This is what a Zettelkasten, this is what the actual system is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, man, and it happened like within a day or two. I was like, whoa, like all of this Obsidian nonsense, all of this digital, Zettelkasten stuff where they're confusing everyone with backlinks, tags, wiki links, atomic notes, like none of that. Lumen did none of that. And
Yeah.
even Sankey Arens in his book, he gets a lot of the principles wrong, like he would say, oh, like only one note, only one idea per note, that stuff. And Lumen did not follow that or ascribe to that. And I think a lot of the magic is in the analog format. And so then like maybe 3 or 4 months into it, I was like, I started building it out and not really knowing where I wanted to go, like what I mentioned. I was reading like, the hero with 1,000 faces and all of that stuff. And then I hit a point where I was like, like I got pretty good at like understanding the system. And then I would continually go back to Lumen's online archive to see how it really worked, right? How the Zettelkasten really worked. And then I read Lumen's paper that he wrote himself, communicating with slip boxes or communicating with note boxes. And then that like lit a complete fire, like another thing of like, oh, well, this is how it's actually supposed to work. And then I read like, I think shortly thereafter, I can't remember at what point I decided to actually write the book on it, but it was from realizing the true actual magic of the Zettelkasten, which revolves around, the analog components, and really the Antinet is the 4 acronyms that Lumen outlined 4 principles, and I've mapped those 4 principles onto the acronym Antinet. And I also used Antinet in the beginning as a double entendre, like a jab at the digital like Obsidian, hardcore fanboys and fangirls.
Yeah.
And so, but like what really really was a point where I was like, you know what, I need to write a book on this, is because I pictured all of those people in that Linking Your Thinking course, those hundreds of people and I'm like, they are all being taught wrong. Like they are being taught this like Obsidian thing that really is going to be like a waste of time. Like I think honestly for digital, like Jordan Peterson does what he does is he just starts like an entire book, and he calls it the magic castle method, where he'll like think of a castle in his mind, like a mnemonic thing, and then he'll in all of his readings he'll just like build it into the Word doc, and it's like almost, I think if Lumen was alive today, I still think he would be using an analog Zettelkasten, but I think if he didn't, I don't think he would use Obsidian or any of the Rome research or anything. He would probably
the problem with those two are that they're a tool is to serve you, but the problem with Obsidian that because you become so reliant on that tool specifically that you can't even map it. You can map a higher concept, like, oh, I'm going to link my thinking in Rome research or something, but they're all so minutia based to get it to work that you become, like if Obsidian does go away, then I'd have to learn a whole new tool. It's not like I can go from Microsoft over to I can't remember what Apple used to use for their Word doc, but WordPerfect or anything. It's like or even like on a Linux, I'm going to use Open Office. I know the schema is mapped already, but with Rome research and all those, they say that you can move in between them. You can't, in my opinion. They're very specific tool for a specific thing that everybody's trying to make work across. And I almost did the linking thinking, and I like that guy from some of the videos I watched it, but I just did not want to get in the digital. You really were a blessing in my life to find, because I was like, it really gave me an answer. I've done more research, more productive thinking in the last 4 weeks than I have in the last 3 or 4 years since I've switched gears and going. So I appreciate it. I'm actually excited. I don't know when I'll be ready to write. I should be able to write an article by now, but I don't know.
No, there's no shoulds, honestly. It's the you know,
Oh, don't get
it's
hippie on me, man.
yeah, yeah,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
relativist postmodernism
Yeah.
hashtag.
Yeah, I
There's no
know.
right and wrong.
I
No,
know. I'm a
uh,
classicist, dude. I can't stand postmodernism, so don't get me started on that.
yeah, it's too postmodernism is too confusing for me.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not
yeah,
smart
the
enough.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, I think that's the second tab. Yeah, it's like when do you know you're ready? You know, it's like when do you know you're ready to start writing? And that was the hardest point for me. Like I think I was like I only started writing the book, believe it or not, like maybe a month and a half ago.
Hmm.
And you know, most of it's written already. You know, it's like
Hmm.
it's written here. And that's the thing. Like I've been writing only for I think a month and a half, if that, and I have 347 pages knocked out.
Good
And
Lord. Are you doing a
yeah,
2-volume set?
yeah, I'm gonna offload all of the work and cutting down to an editor that I hire.
Yeah, definitely. Overwrite for
Yeah,
editor, right? Yeah, that's the
yeah,
best thing to do.
exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah. So yeah, the thing for me is like, you know, like on the ground, I have probably like 20 books. I read maybe I don't know, you know, 10 books, 15 articles, but there's probably like 30 more books that I would want to read to integrate into this book. But then like I got to this point, I'm like just like, I just need to start writing this thing, you know, because
Yeah.
otherwise you're gonna take you can and I actually hired like a book writing consultant, and
Oh,
you know
good.
this is and he was like, you know, I'm like sitting down with our first session with him, and you know, it's about like, oh, how am I going to write this book? And he's like, well, do you have a table of contents or an outline, like knocked out outline for it? I'm like, no, that's probably a pretty good start, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I was forced to do that, and then I'm like, you know what? Like, there's this internal resistance in me that like enjoys the reading and research so much, you know, and
Hmm.
putting off the actual writing part, that
Yeah.
for probably about like 2 or 3 months, I probably could have started writing earlier, but like there was just, and there still is, there's books that I really want to read, but you know, maybe that'll be for the volume 2 or something. You know, I think
Yeah.
the most important part. Yeah. So yeah.
That makes sense.
So the question is like, what do you actually want to write or create? Do you want to create
Yeah.
articles, or do you want to create a book? Like that's
Yeah.
my question to you.
Well, I'm in a contentious, by the way, I just want to point out, that's what I'm
Oh
reading right now.
yes, I have that at home. God,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because I'm
yeah.
interested in, I'm bridging this over to into, I have this fascination on two levels, why do we choose chaos, especially as creatives? I'm a
Hmm.
creative,
Hmm.
which can be very bad. So I've come up with like kind of a model of, what I believe, based on kind of, I mean, obviously you'll see references in this, but like, I'm like talking about, how we,
Yeah, hold this
how
up. Let me see that again.
yes, I don't know
Let's
if you
see
can.
this. Artist and set. Oh yeah, yeah. So you kind of yeah, walk me through this. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is
it's,
kind of like inspired from the Order versus Chaos Jordan Peterson land, right?
yeah, ascent descent cycles,
Okay.
and
Yep.
chaos and creativity. And I talk about, I know this to kind of just tangent a little bit. When I lived in Seattle, my wife and I and my daughter lived on a tree farm, and I got pretty sick because I would climb up trees and cut, limb them so they can grow them bigger, so they can cut them down
Hmm.
for, logging basically. But
Hmm.
and my wife worked in the gardens and stuff. It was kind of like a hippie commune. I went crazy. She loved it. She's that person, spiritual. I'm more like, you know what, guys, just, I'm done with the kumbaya stuff. but
Yeah.
but
But
but I got kind of sick and I went to a doctor, and he came in, he kind of, the nurse checked me and everything. And then, I was sitting up on the table and he came in and he said, well, Mr. I never met him. We never met each other. He said, Mr. Watson, I got some pretty bad news for you. And I was having a lot of lung issues and I was a smoker. So I was like, oh my God, he's going to tell me I have cancer. I was freaking out. Right. And he was like, well, you're pretty abnormal. And that's what the big issue is. And I was like, abnormal? What do you mean the test results are abnormal? And he's like, no, you're abnormal trying to operate in a normal world. And I was just like,
Oh,
what? And he's like,
interesting.
I know you're a poet at heart and you're trying to work in, I did tree climbing, but I also did technology jobs, contract and stuff. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it wrong. You're making yourself sick, basically. So, and to come find out, not only was he a westernized, medical doctor, he was really old. He's probably in his 60s. He had spent 10 years studying Chinese medicine. And so he's very
Okay.
kind of spiritual too. And it really
Mm-hmm.
woke me up. So I started realizing, that I had this chaos inside me that I was constantly trying to grip self with, because I believe as creatives, any creative, but what I would call big C creative, so like artists, painters, musicians, deep intellectuals, not, kind of like what we have now, which is just pseudo intellectualism in academia, but deep intellect. Lumen, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
those are creators. They are creating a new model of thinking, a new mental model, a new way of thinking about things. And so, but mainly artists, poets, creatives. And one of the things we struggle with is we have an idea, like Jordan taught us, it is what it is, and then we have what it should be in our minds, and we're trying to
Mm-hmm.
constantly move. That's a psychological
Yeah.
premise to build
The
on anyway.
is ought principle.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, well, as artists, we want to descend. If, I think if you're worth of shit as an
Mm-hmm.
artist or creative, I want to say creative, because artist is not a creative and a creative is not an artist necessarily, um, but we want to descend into chaos because that's where the
Mm-hmm.
answers are. And that's where the fringe answers are. That's where you make connections for innovation, all that. But how do you enter that without getting into a self-destructive cycle, such as drugs, alcohol,
Yeah.
mental illness?
Mm-hmm.
I'll drop some LSD every once in a while, or I'll microdose to get a little, or you can do breathing exercises to change your
Yeah.
framework.
I'm
But
I'm a fan of LSD once or twice a year.
yeah, exactly. If you're going to do a hero dose, but I'm talking about like more like micro dosing,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm
Even
into.
microdosing is yeah, great. There needs to be more research. I mean, I think the research is there, but
It is.
yeah,
There's
it's
a lot of
fascinating.
cool books on it. I think Maps, aren't they in San Diego? Maps organization. They're the ones that have
Hmm.
getting FDA
I
approval
I
for
think I know what you're talking about. I think they might be
MDMA.
in LA.
Oh, maybe
Uh,
LA. John
yeah,
Hopkins has their own psychedelic research for trauma, and it does,
yeah.
and the results are, it is proven that it does remap the neurons
Hmm.
of trauma victims. So PTSD, mostly soldiers, is what they're working on. So I think it's
Yeah.
fascinating. But so how do we move into that vision
Hmm.
area and not get caught up in this
Yeah, yeah. Get sucked down into the depths of
trapped?
despair in the descent mode. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you can get in that chaotic destructive creative is what I call it, or you can get into a chaotic constructive. Because I think,
Hmm.
people put a lot of emphasis on like, oh, chaos is not good. No, chaos is good as long as you can reintegrate it back into normal society. I hate using that term, but what would Peterson call that? The kind of the father figure, as he brings the mythology and the
Yeah,
order,
yeah,
mother is chaos,
yeah,
father is order,
yeah,
law, all of that. So I'm
yeah.
kind of working in that, and I
It's
would
funny.
like to
Yeah,
write a book on that, because it's also healing and solving for me, because I've certainly
yeah.
lived a life of chaotic destruction, and I've also lived a life of, I'm a published poet, I'm a published professionally produced playwright, I'm a published short story person, but I haven't done any of those in 10 years because I went into the chaos, I got trapped, and I spiraled into depression badly,
Yeah. Yeah,
so
I've been there as well.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's what we artists,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I have so much to say on what you've just said because I think you and I have had a lot of similar thoughts. I'm sure there's a ton of other people have the same
Mm-hmm.
thoughts. First thing is like the order versus chaos, that like really gripped me when I learned about that from Peterson, and
Mm-hmm.
I haven't even made a dent in maps of meaning. I like to think of
It's
chaos.
dense, dude.
Yeah,
It is
yeah,
dense.
yeah.
It's difficult.
He said he would put like two documents on his monitors, right, and he
Mm-hmm.
would break apart each sentence and each paragraph and he would rewrite it 50 times, and
Wow.
yeah, every single sentence was rewritten at least 50 times, and he wrote 3 hours a day over a 10-year period to create that book. And it's sad because that's like probably one of the biggest gems yet. People are only going to read, like a chapter or two of the 12 rules of life and
Yeah.
call it a day.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I got
uh,
Peterson down bat, right? No,
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
fascinating, but it is
yeah. I know.
it's
Yeah.
dense. I've
I,
tried to start a book club 3 times with that book. Everyone bails out of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I'm shocked that you even got people to like
One
start,
of my friends was like,
the
dude,
beginning.
I'd rather read Proust than this.
Yeah, yeah. Stream of consciousness
Yeah,
writing,
exactly.
like Finnegan's Wake.
I'd rather read Finnegan's Wake than this shit, dude. Come on.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's yeah, it's so fascinating. I think there's a lot of truth to what he says though. I
Mhm.
like to think of it like I haven't gone too deep. Maybe he talks about this, but I like to, how it's order versus chaos. I like to call it like order versus nature. And I think like
Mhm.
nature, is nature doesn't have to, it's chaos is not a bad thing. It's just
No,
nature. It's just like the way things work.
it's the
And
mystery.
yeah,
It's like he says, it's the hey, I haven't mapped this in my brain yet. So it doesn't mean it's bad. You
yeah,
put that, perspective, that perception on it, whether it's good or bad, based on your culture, based on previous exposure and everything. But
yeah.
yeah.
I think to touch upon this as well is if you read Luhmann's paper, he talks about it as ordered chaos, and
Mm,
it's not a system of pure order, which is I think why I don't think Obsidian's and or not Obsidian. When I say Obsidian, I love Obsidian. Like it's a great tool. I just don't think it's an effective. I don't think it's as strong as the analog form, right? And the reason is, and like any digital app or any digital note taking tool, it's way too focused on order. It's like they
order.
don't allow any room for chaos. And what
Yeah.
Luhmann talks about is that one of the biggest components of any evolutionary advance is accidents, and accidents come about through structured chaos, and that's kind of
Hmm.
what like the Antinet is, and Luhmann's system was. It was just weird. It was kind of like how nature is chaotic. However, if you zoom in on nature, there's very ordered principles like the atomic theory principle. It's like everything
Hmm.
is just made up of single units of atoms, every material object, right? And then there's like you know different other like thermodynamics and other ordered laws, yet out of order becomes chaos, and then getting comfortable with that. um but yeah, the other thing that you said that was really interesting is of the ascent and descent cycle, is that's exactly what is talked about in A Hero with a Thousand Faces.
Hmm.
He calls it like the anode and cathode,
Yeah.
and cathode is like the downfall of every hero and every hero's journey, and it's the same. I think it's Greek root for catharsis.
Yeah.
Catharsis is like purging and death so that you can have the ascent, which is the rebirth. um
Yep.
and yeah, you're touching on a lot of stuff that I think a lot of people are interested in, and I think a lot of people are starting to realize is like one of the true aspects and laws of the universe and how things work. But yeah, you went into a descent mode, and I've certainly gone there too. And I think the funny thing is that like how there's like the human needs of we all want like I think like Tony Robbins talks about like the 6 human needs, and we all want security, but yet at the same time we all want insecurity as well. The
Hmm.
insecurity is the spontaneity in life, and
Exactly.
so and I think it's funny. It's like I think we all subconsciously we there's approval, control, and security, which are like the human desires and human wants and needs. Yet
Yeah.
it's funny because at the same time we also want the exact opposite of those three things at different times as
Absolutely.
well. We want
Yeah.
disapproval because we want to be our own person. We want to be unique. We want insecurity, and we want lack of control because it like gives us more of an excitement for life. um but yeah, that's see what we're talking about and what you're talking about is exactly the reason that was desired to find a system like the Antinet in the first place. Because
Hmm.
I was writing all of this. If you can see at the very, very top of the Antinet, there's like
Yeah.
some notebooks in there. And
Yeah.
for like I don't know, 6 months, I would just smoke cigars on my patio and read, philosophy and psychology books and write in my notebooks. And I'm like, man, there's no way to connect all of this. And then I turned to Excel, and Excel actually
Oh
worked
my
pretty
God.
well. Yeah, and I used diagrams in Excel and all that stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, like this is actually, and I've tried Trello. I tried
Yeah,
then I stumbled upon Obsidian, and I was convinced, oh my god,
that
this
was
is the
it.
answer. This is the ultimate.
That's
And I'm
how I
like,
felt.
no, yeah, I'm like, and then after a while, I'm like, man, like I've not really gotten anywhere. And then
Yeah.
it's not until I, started really stumbled upon the real analog, Zettelkasten system that I really started making progress in it. But
I
yeah,
think
I
it's
mean, so
beautiful because they like and I tried it in Obsidian, it didn't work, which is why I like this. Is like I will literally be writing out, like, I'll do my reading. I'll start, my main note.
yeah.
And I'll start writing it. And halfway through it, I'll be like, it'll spark something else. So I have another piece that I'll write just down the thought, because then get back to this. And before I know it, I've got like 3 or 4 thoughts. They're not necessarily connected one
Hmm.
behind the other. It might go over here into, I'm like, oh, that kind of fits in the, anthropology, because I just,
Hmm.
or that's under my
But
mythology, or
when you do that, do you add links to the anthropology section or stuff like that in the card, like remote links, I call them?
yeah, so like I'll have, like, this part about disordered. It links over from 2612 4 card. It links over to 2121 1,
Yep.
which is my mythology section.
Yep.
And that
You know
word
what?
is linked. Yeah.
So I think the reason that that's awesome and important is because it temporally stamps your own consciousness and your own state of mind, right?
Hmm.
At that point in time, so that it's kind of like when you review that card, it's like, oh, at the time I was thinking about this card, and it locked it in, like that connection into time.
Hmm.
Whereas in, I think, digital systems, you're always updating or editing, the notes and cards, right? So
Hmm.
it's almost like it never retains that special history, and
Hmm.
which is kind of cool with the system. It's like you forget you forget the connections when you go back and review the notes, so that when you go and review that note, you'll be like, wait, why am I linking over here to this like 2121 section? That's random. And then you
Yeah.
realize it, and you're like, oh, holy crap. And yeah, it almost like locks our brilliant way of comparing and linking and making, similar, I don't know,
Hmm.
links in a state of time where we can, and then it fixes our mind in that state of time, instead of you look at a note and then like every, that when you open the note, that, oh, it's probably been edited like 42 times, and it doesn't have that initial state, so it's not really like you're looking at something of your mind. And when you see it in your own
Hmm.
handwriting, it's just like, it's a beautiful thing. It's like, yeah, it's really
It's allowing
makes
for
an impact.
cognitive load to take place. The Antinet, opposed to, and I'm like you. I hate saying, Zettelkasten, because everybody just thinks automatically,
Yeah.
Obsidian stuff. And again, I'm like you. I think Obsidian is a great tool for a specific knowledge management system type of thing, but
Yeah.
you're putting that, you're not, cognitive load is important for thinking. You need to hold ideals in your mind, which is why I was glad that you saw that, you told people, to make, kind of like the little notes, just brief notes, just
Hmm.
to, something to highlight out and everything. Because I don't sit down immediately and write my notes. I don't,
Hmm.
very rarely do I excerpt. It has to be exquisite quote or something
Yeah,
that I want to
exactly.
excerpt. I'm very selective, like you said, because I want cognitive load to be going on in my mind. That's the only way to push stuff into connective and long-term memory, is when you struggle. But people feel uncomfortable with cognitive load. I even felt, you kind of, this from learning programming from a creative person standpoint, right? There's a
Hmm.
lot of cognitive load there, that you're trying to get your mind around these concepts. And a lot of people give up feeling uncomfortable and struggling. But I love, one of the things that my professor taught me when I was younger about the Greek meaning of understand, is to stand under the weight of something. So when you tell someone you understand something, or you understand them, you're saying, I stand under you or I just under the weight of what you just told me, and I am struggling with it. I'm fighting with it because that's the only way to learn it and to really know it, you know. And so
Yeah.
that's something that appealed to me about this when you were talking about the Antinet, is it makes
Yeah.
you make those connections and struggle with it. And
Mm-hmm.
writing by
Because
hand is
yep.
struggling.
Yeah, you have to add your own experience and your own
Mm-hmm.
knowledge
Mm-hmm.
to it by writing it in your own, by elaborating on it. Is
Mm-hmm.
I just came across that recently as well. It's like that's the difference between understanding and comprehending. Comprehending is just like, spending 30 seconds reading a Wikipedia article, right?
Yeah.
And kind of comprehending the idea.
Yeah.
Understanding it is what the Antinet forces you to do, is to explain it, to either reformulate the note by writing by hand
Yeah.
or reflecting on it, and so many times, like I'll, because that's what I think, it forces you to slow down when you write by
Mm-hmm.
hand the main notes, that I'll be like, get halfway through and be like, you know what, honestly, I actually don't really understand this. I have to
Yeah.
go like reread it so I can write it out so that I can
Yeah.
understand it. And that's,
Exactly.
it forces the understanding, which has a much greater impact on long-term memory. And
Yeah.
that's why it's like they have the research studies out there, and the paper. There's that famous paper from 2014 called "The Pen is Mightier Than the Keyboard,"
Yeah.
and they showed that students that actually wrote by hand far better increase understanding and outperform students on tests than those who just write by keyboard. Um,
And I was happy
yeah,
when you sent that, because I'm getting to the point where I've worked in technology so long, I'm sick of it. You know, I really am. Like, I'm almost to the
yeah,
point where I'm like, I don't even want a computer, a phone around me. I just want my
yeah,
books
yeah.
and everything. But it was interesting when you even did the planner thing, because that's been my struggle.
Hmm.
When I read that paper, and they're like, even people that did it by writing by hand in a planner were kept things together and structured more than people that put it into digital planners. And that really surprised me, actually. I figured it would be the reverse with planners, because that's not
Hmm.
reflective necessarily, long form reflective, but it does make sense. So
Yeah.
that's pretty interesting. I think the Antinet fits perfectly into like Bloom's taxonomy of learning, you know, like
Hmm.
how you know what you know, the meta learning thing too. So I find that fascinating.
I'm not familiar with that. What is that? The Bloom's text, or what is
It's
it?
how we learn, you know, moving up the hierarchy,
Meta
the
learning.
ultimate hierarchy. Yeah,
Okay.
the ultimate is like, kind of like, can you explain it to someone? Can you explain it to someone in
Oh yeah.
simple terms? Can you compare and contrast? And then the ultimate is you know it deeply when you can connect and write it beyond what other people have seen that domain as.
Mm.
That's the ultimate side of the hierarchy, but it's Bloom's taxonomy. But this, your system works into it. I mean, I know this is based on Lumen,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
It's not necessarily my system. I'm just kind of
no, Scott, we're starting a
I'm
cult, man. Come on,
yeah,
stop,
yeah,
stop. We're
exactly.
starting a cult.
I've kind of just excavated the system. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Scott, you're the Messiah.
Yeah.
Everybody out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. 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 I forgot about that. Yeah. I'm just preaching
Bring
I'm
your
God's word, aka
bring
Lumen's
your
word.
boxes, my beloved. Bring your boxes before me. Show me your cards, and you
Yeah.
shall be
The
anointed.
the mandate from heaven is to develop the mind. Yeah, like that's part of my story. I forgot to mention. Yeah, it's like I honestly didn't want to write this. Lumen came to me in a vision in my dreams, and he said, my mandate from heaven, I'm here to teach it to the world.
Yes,
But yeah,
yes,
yeah,
Messiah, I believe you.
it's yeah, like I and on that, what you mentioned, I would love to use the Zettelkasten term, which all it means is notebox, but
Yeah,
like there's problems with just calling it a notebox system, because Ryan Holiday, already kind of hijacked that term and
yeah,
created a notebox system, organized by category. I would love to just use the term Zettelkasten. What would need to happen is like all of the digital Zettelkasten people with their tags and wiki links and all of that stuff, they would just need to use a new term. They would need to use like, I think they should use the term called like hypernotes or something,
Yeah.
like it's because they've just all they have is like hyperlinks mixed with digital notes. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of just like a personal website, it's just like, why do you have to
Tiddlywink
use
links. That's what they should call their system.
yeah, tiddly tiddly links.
Tiddlywink links.
Yeah. I'll have to I'll create a petition on the Zettelkasten.
There you go. There you go.
I propose you change the name that you guys use and have like hijacked the term to tiddly link winks.
Yeah. I think it's perfect that they hijacked
yeah.
it, dude. You came up with Antinet is perfect. And
Yeah.
it is a double entendre. And I love that about it. And I noticed that as soon as before you even explained what it was, I was like, hey, kudos, good one.
Yeah.
But but I understood it once you explained it, what the acronym was and everything. I think it's perfect. And I think, I'd rather for it to be called Antinet than Zettelkasten.
Yeah,
I think
too.
it makes
like,
more sense to people.
Well, it's better for people that like have, and look, most people in this world, except for a small niche, group of us who are like, not even like, it's like a niche within like, learners and academics and creatives that even know about Zettelkasten, and so it's like most people in the world, if you ask them like, oh, an Antinet versus Zettelkasten, they're gonna, it's a lot harder to understand Zettelkasten as well. There's two T's in it. People are gonna be like, what the hell is Zettelkasten? Like some German word, So yeah, so we're rocking the Antinet and it's here to stay. So
yeah, I love it, man. I think I stay off of, Reddit and all that. And it's a little too, crazy for me, especially Reddit. But I pretty much the only social media I use is YouTube. I watch, and I have my subscription to people that I like and I watch them, and I might do some research for something, but I pretty much stay off of it. So I'd love to see you start like, like a ghost.org blog or somewhere you can have a membership and stuff, because I would join that. I don't go on all those. I don't, it's just I don't, it's just too distracting for me. So I would love for you to start a closed society, so to speak, or a membership site, so that, and I would pay for it, to be honest. I mean, I think most people in the YouTube community that are fans, or they wouldn't be subscribed, would join you in that, and just to have a place to do stuff like this, like even like a bi-weekly Zoom call or something.
Oh yeah,
or
with all of our members and stuff,
or to talk like more deeply about like not only just the Antinet, but like, hey, what are you working on, dude? Oh, that's fascinating. And kind of share and cross pollinate each other in our intellectual or creative work and stuff, because
I love that.
I think it just naturally, I honestly, if you don't start it, I'm gonna start it.
The
marketer in me will start it.
I have the domain antinet.org. I was thinking of creating a lot of stuff around that, and that like I actually, you bring up a good point. I didn't think of doing a private community, like maybe build on something like, they've got a few good ones, like Mighty Networks is as a really good platform, but it's kind of like a private Facebook that is better than Facebook.
It's kind of expensive though.
That
one might not.
Okay.
The way they charge and everything, it's kind of expensive. It depends on what you want, but that is nice, having that the kind of Facebook feel where people can react, they can respond to each other, but then there's a major thread moving through. That is cool.
And it would be cool to create a community around this, because I think that also it's like the Antinet, there's like the Antinet Zettelkasten, but there might be other like analog analog to-do list type stuff, that may emerge from it, but Antinet type stuff. But I was even thinking of, for a long time I've wanted to do a Gary Halbert used to do his newsletter, physical based newsletter, right? And have that be a monthly.
Be so wonderful.
And have it a physical, exactly, have it go out monthly to people. You maybe send out pens as well, note cards, all
like
that
a
stuff.
long sheet, that comes in the mail, and you unfold it. I'd love that idea, dude. I am totally so that's on the docket and the list. It's like, is
but I think that would be really cool to incorporate the community into it as well. It's essentially the anti-netters are those that like want to develop their mind using analog thinking tools,
Yeah.
you know.
We're the
And
hooligans, man. We're the hooligans on the
oh
outside
yeah,
that want to like
yeah, the crazy
roughhouse
ones.
through the
We're the
that's what
crazy ones. I
exactly.
mean, look at like, it's usually, I mean, in the beginnings, I was like working late. And so, I would, be like having all these open and the cleaning lady would walk in, in my office here at like, like 8 o'clock at night and see like
Yeah.
all these note cards everywhere being like, what in the hell is this guy even doing? Like, what is
Yeah.
he doing? It's just like, I'm like no
This is a
cards,
mad
4 by 6 no
scientist
cards.
working.
Yeah. 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 And we're the crazy ones. We're the crazy ones that just, it's an incommunicable experience of being able to develop your knowledge like through handwriting.
Yeah.
I thank you for sharing that. I love that it's kind of like reignited that spark in you of
Oh yeah.
developing your mind. I love that you also have diagrams. I think the diagrams is not really talked about, but that's one of the, I think, the biggest areas where this system can flourish, is like being able to like draw diagrams and then evolve those diagrams as well over time. Like
Mhm.
I've got a bunch of
And I've
diagrams
done
too.
that. I've
Yeah.
done that. I'll see it
Yeah.
getting, and I never used to draw diagrams, even in my notebooks, in my journal
Yeah.
books and stuff. I never, for some reason, I started doing it here because it's
Yeah.
like, it's like, it's a powerful system and much more powerful than any digital system. I've been on this earth long enough. I was pre-digital, I'm 49. So, the internet barely came around right in my
Yeah.
early
You
1820s.
were a young looking 49-year-old. I'll say
Oh,
that.
thanks, dude. I appreciate it. Well, amazingly, I've somehow come unscathed in life, but yeah, it's went back to my roots. I've always written by hand before I type papers. I always
Yeah.
get my thoughts down by hand. I think that's the poet in me, as I have
Yeah.
to work with words to rework them around. But this is just, I mean, it just blew my mind. And like I said, I get it. And, I hope that people are enjoying what we're talking about, and because I
Oh,
know
I
people are
think they are.
still
Yeah.
wanting to learn how to do things. But my biggest advice to people is like, from what Scott's already, all the videos, especially the last ones, you can do. You don't. It doesn't take a rocket science. Put your energy and thoughts into the actual research and learning and writing your thoughts out. Put your brilliance out. I'm a coach, and I'm already like sending it, kind of getting people into this kind of way of thinking. Now, some people are like, I just,
Yeah.
but other people are like, man, this is working. Because I work with a lot of creatives and people that
Yeah.
are intellectuals. I kind of pilfered some, not intentionally, but the reason why I wanted you to seriously consider a private group is
Hmm.
because yes, the Antinet, but this is so this well, let me go back. There's a guy, I won't mention his name. I really thought what he was doing was cool. He did digital newsletter, but he was intellectual, and he was very conservative side, let's say political side of things, a little too conservative for me. I'm more moderate, but he got out of academia because what academia is now and
Yeah.
everything. But the thing that bothered me about the group and him that started coming out was it became very highbrow intellectual, like
Hmm.
almost like he was cool with me because I mean, he didn't have his master's degree, so you're not going to talk shit to me when I've earned my
Hmm.
master's in research, and stuff.
Hmm.
But he was a super smart guy, but he had this almost like gatekeeper attitude, like, oh,
Mm.
if you're not in academia, or you're not writing really highly academic stuff to try to get in journals, then you're not an intellectual, you're not. And it just pissed me off, because I
Hmm.
was like, if you have some of the most brilliant insights in the world came from non-academics,
Hmm. Oh yeah,
and even and
absolutely.
some of the academics that came up with the most brilliant stuff always say they went outside, they walked into the chaos, they
Yeah.
dropped LSD, or they went into the fringe to find the answer. So I don't like that attitude. And sure enough,
Yeah.
he's imploded, because
Hmm.
it just got really bad. So
Yeah.
I would love to see something like that for genteel people like myself that
Yeah. Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
talk about the
It's
stuff.
yeah. Yeah. Just a no bull crap, highbrow, honest pursuit of knowledge and developing the mind, and
Yeah.
creating work that impacts others. I think honestly, I don't know if there's reasons, why this is, but like I think Lumen was hurt by being an academic more than it helped him, because he operated in the academic, intellectual climate at the time in Germany, and like, where it's like the more confusing and the more highbrow and like the more you just completely fly over someone's head and confuse someone, the more respected you are. Yet like
Yeah.
now here we are today, and he's written 70 books, but they are like 70 of the worst books you'll ever read in your life if you're trying to
Yeah.
actually understand it,
Exactly.
and it's because he and then like in lectures and stuff he would actually speak very clearly, and I think that kind of idea, it kind of comes from like fear based or something. I don't know what it is within academia, where they have really big egos, and that ends up hurting their science and their
Yeah.
theories and all of that stuff. But well, he imploded.
Yeah, I got a
So
lot of
whatever.
I like theory, I like the
Yeah.
theoretical, and we need that in the world. But I think we're at an age, a time that, the individual, because we're so interconnected now, I mean, you can really make an impact, a genuine impact into the world, and really impact people's lives. Like, I really want to express to you, and I'm not, I'm joking with you, like start a cult and everything. So I don't want you to take this like and everything, but I think a lot of people are underappreciated. I want you to know that I appreciate how you've developed and how you put your time in, and more importantly, how you freely share this with people, because this is not just like, hey, I want to write a book, which would be important to me. Hey, I want to be more intellectual. Hey, I want to develop my mind more and get my mind back to that sharpness of my 20-year-old. So, oh God, if I would have had this in my 20s,
Mhm.
oh my
That's what
God,
everyone
where I would
says.
be now.
Even I say that.
Yeah, but but dude, it's transformative on another level. I don't want to get frou-frou.
Yeah.
I'm not a big spiritual guy and everything, but it is a spiritual. I know what Lumen's saying now when you talked about that ghost in the
Yeah.
box or
Oh yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It is.
You know,
It's a zeitgeist producing box. It's
yeah.
like, dude, I'm going to open this, and a zeitgeist moment's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's
You have that
That's
you have a
transformative, dude.
it creates an inner dialogue, not an inner monologue. That's what a lot of
Yes.
people, when you're searching in, your Obsidian notes or something like that, you're like searching, I don't know, like any concept, you're searching chaos, then you'll come up with like 50 results that are irrelevant for chaos or something,
Yeah.
right? And that's like an inner monologue experience. You're like, oh, I'm searching for, this, and in digital
Mm-hmm.
form, and you're seeing, a font, a standard system, computer system font, right? When you are sifting through your notes in your own handwriting, it captures your own consciousness in a way that cannot be captured in
Oh
digital
no.
form.
Yeah.
And it's an internal dialogue too, like that voice and those notes, that mind of yours that's locked in its past form in the note, is having a conversation with you, and you're having a conversation with it, like what
Yeah.
is it talking about? And I know it does seem, and I've stated it in my book, it does seem like woo stuff, and sappy, to say it,
Yeah.
but Lumen starts his paper communicating with note boxes with you know he says we chose to describe this as under communication theory, because we are communicating with each other, and we consider ourselves systems. Now, um he uses the term we and us in it. You know why? It's because he's talking about we in terms of him and his notebox.
Oh
Like
wow.
we are communicating, right? And everyone just glosses over it. Like Lumen has a lot of radical things that he says, and there's that really good book, The Radical Lumen, that talks about it. But yeah, it's like people, that he writes in a very it's challenging. Even his paper communicating with note boxes is a challenging read. You have to sit there and read it slowly. Um,
Yeah, you said
but
it
yeah,
took you a while to get through just the paper, right?
oh yeah, I probably spent like 3 weeks to a month, 3 to 5 weeks reading that thing. And then
Wow.
then with Johann Schmidt, I spent like a good month reading it, and they're his paper as well. because I wanted,
Was it
and
because of
then
the translation too? Was that part of it? Like it was a little more, maybe not
um,
translated.
it was translated. The translation, it does have problems, and I've like created my own version of it to, like to fix some of the problems. But it wasn't the translation so much. It was just like the way Lumen writes.
Mm,
Like he's
like
but
Peterson.
yeah, I know he's probably more difficult than Peterson. Well, I don't
Oh my
know. I
God.
mean, yeah,
Dude,
he's
I've been on this book for like, I'm like only maybe 60 pages into a 700-page book.
yeah.
It's
Oh
taken me
yeah.
weeks to work through it. It's
Yeah.
dense, but it's rewarding if you
Oh, hell yeah.
get up that cognitive load,
Yeah.
struggle, play or struggle, play, fight with the ideas. Do I agree? What does that compare to that contract? To really work through it, almost like, what's his name, Adler. How
Yeah.
he talks about that. That's one of the books I
Yeah.
read in my
Mortimer
20s.
Adler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mortimer Adler,
Yeah.
How to Read a Book.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, but I definitely, not to add another book to your list, I please read Walter J. Ong, ONG,
Okay.
Orality and Literacy. It fits completely
Got
into
it.
like your ideas on this.
Okay.
And the
Got
funny
it.
thing about it is he was really into, I can't remember the guy's name, but it was a system of not, it was like a ancient knowledge system from the 1500s.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I
I'm
can't
I'm
remember what
I'm
it's
into that
called.
right now. I've
Yeah,
got all the systems.
check him out.
Um,
Look him up on
was it?
Wikipedia. He talks about who he supported. People hated supposedly this medieval scholar for his system, but it
Oh, okay.
supposedly was really cool. So check
Was
that out.
I haven't like some writing and done research into that, like the Renaissance people. Was it the? Let me see. I was it the Arc of Studies? Do you know
No, no,
Harrison system? Thomas Harrison.
no.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like if going throughout history, there's a lot of Renaissance guys, and in the 1500s that have created card catalogs, and these Lumen type systems. It's like it.
Yeah, his was like
Uh,
a trying to hierarchy knowledge. Not, how they were
okay.
in the medieval and Renaissance. They were all about, they were into fucking alchemy and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
he's trying to map knowledge and God and all that
Oh,
into
interesting.
man's knowledge
Oh, a
system and
classification system.
yeah,
Yeah.
classification
Yeah.
system. So,
Yep.
but Walter J. Ong was a scholar in this guy, and I think he was a French scholar, 15th century scholar that Walter J. Ong was into.
Oh,
And
okay.
he was
Yeah.
actually the professor at the school I went to, but he retired right before I got there. But his protege came back to teach Shakespearean, and that's who I took it under. And for rhetoric, I had to read a lot of Walter J. Ong, but it completely transformed the way I viewed writing by hand and understood
Interesting.
how
Okay.
powerful writing by hand is. So
I've
I
got
think,
yet another
yeah,
book.
yeah,
I
get
love
another
it.
book.
Thank
I'm
you. I'm gonna
sorry.
get it. I'm gonna get it.
and
No.
and
Thank you. When
and
do you
as
see
soon
the
as you're willing to join Lane
Oh
Watson's
God.
book
Yeah.
club, our first
For the light read.
for the light read. No,
Yeah. Good.
orality literacy is very clear. Walter J. Allen is a very clear, very brilliant man. He won like I think a Nobel Peace Prize. So very clear guy, but anybody as a layman could read this book and understand the power of moving from an oral pre-literate civilization to when we became literate and could write, how
Hmm.
our brain literally changed and how we started amassing the ability to move technology, not technology but technology back then forward. So it's very
Yeah.
powerful read. So definitely check it out when you have time.
Yeah. I would love to. Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna let you off the hook. Let's hear your goals.
Oh,
We just went a long meandering way, but I haven't forgotten about that. I also would love to see, maybe the
you're
audience would
not my
love to see
messiah
too.
anymore. You
Yeah.
can go to hell.
Yeah, the Messiah has to hold his followers accountable.
Oh yes, the messiah.
Yeah. Yeah. The at some point I would love to see your I think the audience would love to see it too, is your own, you showed me right before a call, like your own Antinet and how it's forming, and take a tour through that.
Oh sure.
But yeah, let's
Well,
first let's talk briefly about it. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to decide, but kind of like,
yeah.
what are your goals, if any? And like, and it's fine if so there's both the God, goals. goals suck. Okay, first off, it's well, they don't suck. It's a dichotomy because
Yeah.
it's a dichotomy between emergent, meaning emergent ideas, because you
Hmm.
don't really know all of the things that you're going to discover. Like the best ideas come about through emergence, and
Yeah.
stumbling upon them. But then at the same time, there's just too much to know. So you have to
Yeah.
also be like selective. So there's emergence versus goals, right? And deliberateness and setting.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing. It's like you have to do both simultaneously and dance between them. And for a long time, for like 6 months, maybe it feels even longer than that, I couldn't decide on a definite goal, which is fine. And you may be in that phase, but yeah, tell me what's your kind of goals and thinking of and using the system.
Yeah. So just to give you an idea, I have books on, psychedelics, and plant medicine. I have books, a lot of literature books, Raymond Carver, Ayn Rand, things like that, and classic literature, Shakespeare. And then I have books on, creativity, academic science of creativity or cognitive creativity, and then creativity books, like popular ones like Still Like an Artist and stuff. And then I have a lot of theology books and stuff because I'm interested in, early Christianity and mysticism,
Mm-hmm.
so and then I have some biology and statistics books, and then I have programming and data, social mining, social media mining, and data analytics and things like that, and then some marketing and business books, right? So
Mm-hmm.
have a lot
Yeah,
of stuff that
it's
I'm
kind of
interested
similar
in.
similar to me. Yeah, I'm in the
Exactly.
early theology, early Christianity. There's a great book called Zealot. It's like, the real
Hmm.
true Jesus of Nazareth, and takes
Yeah.
them through that. But yeah, yeah, you're very cross disciplined,
Yeah.
which is good. I think we all are, like
Well, I got
yeah.
a good, I mean, not to get out of the gold thing, but just to kind of get a perspective. I grew up poor on a farm. I was a poor Southern boy who had big dreams. And back then, I didn't know if I'd ever be able to go to college because I was poor. Poor people didn't go to college. Now
Hmm.
everybody fucking gets to go to college. But back then, you literally had to have intellectual rigor. If you didn't graduate high school, it was almost impossible to get into college. And I quit school when I was
Well,
like
yeah.
14. But I, for
Oh wow.
some reason, was very intellectual. Like I was reading Dostoevsky when I was like 15, 16 years old. I was kind of a
Jeez.
punk, so I was around
Yeah.
like kind of college punk students that,
Uh-huh.
kind of took me under their wing. But I eventually went on to school and everything. But I had a really good undergraduate. I went to a Jesuit university, and they believe that all knowledge is connected through the mind of God. So they automatically
Yeah.
believe that all knowledge is connected and important. And you cannot graduate from a Jesuit college unless you take philosophy, take theology, take a logic course, and you have, literature, psychology, social science. So you have to take those. You can't focus in, I want to just be math. If you're a math person, you still have to take theology, you still have to take philosophy. So and all those professors believe in that theory. A lot of them are religious, some of them aren't, but
Hmm.
they do believe that all knowledge is connected to the mind of God. So they all enter cross departmental, hang out with each other.
Hmm.
It's beautiful. You don't see it because
Yeah.
I've went to other universities. It's not like that. They're very department, siloed,
Yep.
and so I've always been that way. And like I said, I can read a book and I'll connect it. If I have an interest, a question, it'll somehow, it either doesn't get selected because it doesn't fit into my question I'm trying to answer, or it goes, oh yeah, that kind of does fit in. Like I was reading a poetry book the other day and I was like, that actually fits into my framework for, my beta framework that I'm developing. And that fits into associational thinking. Because as a
Hmm.
poet, you're really good at associational thinking, or if you're a decent poet, you'll be good at associational thinking. So I want to write. I'm not sure what book yet, but I want to write books again, but
Hmm.
nonfiction. And, I hate to call it intellectual books, but you know what I mean. Nonfiction, meaningful books, not the
Hmm.
fucking rehash trash that people are constantly putting out. That, the next self-help book that Tony
Hmm.
Robbins wrote 20 years ago, that
Yeah.
they're just,
Yeah. The
everybody
rehashing Tony
just,
Robbins. Yeah.
It's excerpts. It's excerpts of other brilliant people. I don't want to
Yeah.
do that. And I'm tired of reading that trash, which is why I go back
Hmm.
to the classics, So, and I think that's what you are saying, that you like what you're doing is, yes, it's based on Lumen, but it's you bringing a new insight, a new connection. It is innovative. There's innovation that completely changes like how people view, like, I mean, it's radical, right? The internet coming about, that's
Hmm.
radical innovation. Everything after the internet that's technology is innovation, is incremental innovation, and so you're doing
Yeah. The
something
0 to 1
meaningful.
principle,
Yes, so you're
Yeah.
doing a meaningful intellectual book that, but intellectual in the sense that I can still read it. I don't want to read something dense about the Antinet.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
sign of a brilliant person is like Feynman, the scientist. He can explain
Yep.
quantum physics to a 5-year-old and they will understand it, or to a 10-year-old and they will understand it. That's the
Yep.
sign of a true, brilliant, intellectual person. And that's what
Hmm.
I want to be in my life before I die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, hey, you're
I've
you're
lived
you're
almost
making
half a century.
yeah, well, hey, you're primed. Now you're ready. That was all just a warm up. Now, this chapter, this time it's personal.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, yeah, no, you bring a lot of good, points
But
up.
in the
Yeah.
meantime,
It's
I want to
funny. It's
read.
like,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh, no, you go ahead.
Yeah. In the meantime, I want to write. I'm getting ready to set back up Lane Watson. Man, how many times I've set up that site to write and just didn't write because I didn't feel like
Hmm.
I had anything to say. Now, for the first time, I'm excited because I do have something to say. I'm scared to say it out,
Hmm.
put it out there for others to read. And I try to teach my daughter. She does animation stuff, and I'm like, there's constructive criticism, and the haters, you just tell them to fuck off, basically.
Yeah.
That's why I tell my 10-year-old daughter, by the way,
Yeah.
tell people,
Nice.
fuck off. If it's
Yeah.
constructive, listen to them. If it's worthy, then listen to them. If it doesn't help, be polite, say thank you for your constructive criticism. I don't. So, but I do have a fear of putting out my thoughts. So I do want to start blog writing, or writing short, thought pieces, that are developing too. But I ultimately want to write a book from this on
Yeah.
chaos, creativity. I've been wanting to write a book for a while called Living the Questions, basically
Hmm.
talking about how important it is to live the questions. If you don't live the
Hmm.
questions, it comes from, Rilke, the poet, German poet Rilke, talks about, your prime reasoning to, as a poet, he's writing letters to a young poet, is to live the questions and answer them for others to learn.
Hmm.
Um,
What do you
so
mean by the questions? Like the big
like
questions?
the big questions, but also the small questions of like, yeah, I would say the big questions. I'm still defining
Like,
that.
why do we exist? Type of questions,
Well,
or
maybe
what?
not that big. I mean, certainly that's always good, but that's
Yeah,
philosophy, right? No,
I
mine's
see.
more in the realm of teaching people to be more, sorry, more innovative and creative. And I'll go over that in my cards. I'll
Hmm.
talk about my beta framework that I've been working on
Yeah.
for, several years.
Hmm.
Um, and it's kind of a framework for rapid creativity, because I used to lead creative problem solving group,
Hmm.
facilitated group problem solving. It was mainly directed towards corporations and stuff in my graduate school. And a lot of things that I noticed was, yeah, great, it can work, but people come in with like what is called, I was just reading up on this, but cognitive fixation, where they get they can't see outside of themselves, or they're too afraid to speak their mind, which is expert, all the expert knows it. So expert think, infiltrating organizations and making it where, oh, we can't say anything against the expert, he's the knowledgeable one, so it shuts down innovation on it. So I came up
Hmm.
back then in grad school, which is 9 years ago. I was starting to tinker around with this framework on beta, called the beta framework, to try to get people to to break that. And so I would do these because we're pretty good on creative problem solving methodologies and frameworks and in the creative innovation field. We have CPS model, we have the trees model from the Russians. There's lots of models out there, so I don't think there's anything new in that. But what they
like I'm not familiar with that stuff, so okay. I think you'd have a lot to say and like teach,
yeah. But I want to write a book that I can back up with the intellectuals, that I know are going to come after me, because I have a radical idea about creativity. Everybody believes you go to any creativity grad program, you go into psych programs and stuff, and this all comes from positive psychology. Everybody's creative.
Positive psychology.
Everybody. It's in cognitive, but the positive psychology people got involved in.
Seligman.
So everybody,
Seligman, I think.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's creative. Okay, Scott. Everybody's creative. Everybody. Well, they are right. Little c creativity. Yeah. Anybody. Well, most people can solve a problem that with a creative idea, right? Cooking's using creativity, right? I'm talking about like stuff that moves the needle, right? And that's where you get into cognition. It makes me sound like a little bit of a elitist. I'm not. I'm just saying, can I teach anyone to be a poet? Yes. Can I teach anyone to be a fucking remarkable poet? No, because it's just, you have it or you don't. Your mind can make connections. Now, could I teach you to be a remarkable poet over 10, 20 years? Yeah. So if you come to me at, 20 and you say, Lane, I want to be a world famous poet, then I'm gonna say, be prepared to study under me, not under me as a poet, but like teaching you how your mind should work as a poet. That naturally, some reason I picked it up. I grew up in an abusive home and I was poor, so I had to be creative and think laterally and do all these things that someone in a safe home or had a strict education got stripped out of them. Because we're all creative until about 7 years old, is what they say, is when we lose our creativity. Well, that's about the time we're in first, second grade, when they start getting you into rote memorization. So I want to write a book that teaches people that don't think they're creative, like probably more like entrepreneurial and stuff, because I'm interested in that, and to start really thinking out of the box, without having to put like loads of time into 3-week group workshops where half the people in your organization show up and they don't want to do it, and they're like sitting there going, how fast can I get back to do the work that's piling on me right now? Thanks for inviting me out to this. And so that, and then the other side of me wants to write about this, what we were talking about, chaos stuff, which is something I'd like to explore with you more, because that's the personal side.
Yeah, that's kind of like I call it, I like the term life philosophy. It's kind of like philosophy, but it's like, maybe it's like applied philosophy.
Applied philosophy is a perfect example.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I like that term, applied philosophy. I'm still in it.
Yeah. No, I used to call it life philosophy, but then it just came out as applied philosophy. Right now, I like that term better.
Because everybody's always like, Lane, you're such a great life coach, and I hate that fucking term.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, I'm not a life coach.
And personal development or self-development, it's like it I like that stuff, but I like the term like applied philosophy a little bit better, because it's not just like, you can't just bundle it under like psychology and so stuff.
I'm gonna
like
put
that.
it on my business card, applied philosopher.
I love it.
I'm seriously I'll mail you one.
Yeah, okay, sweet. Yeah, you know my address. I post it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to do.
So I would say one of the things, and I kind of have done it a little bit, but I've really just broken it apart by chapter, is one of the things, like Luhmann wrote like 600, like I think peer-reviewed papers or published papers, right? Which is like a massive amount in like 30 years. And he also wrote 70 books. And I think the reason that he was able to produce 70 books is because he broke everything out into like, 1 month long, or 6 week long projects. Like, each paper was like an individual project and thing that then, you know, he could repurpose into the book, you know. And sounds like maybe with
That
what you're
makes
doing
sense.
of like writing a is like getting your website up and running, is what you might want to think about doing is like select one post that you're going to write, you know, and like write your, you know, your Antinet, your cards, you know, around that project and that post.
Mhm.
It's tough because there's almost like two separate types of reading. Is one is the emergent type of reading, which is how you're essentially doing the maps of meaning, is you're in discovery mode, you know.
Yeah.
But then there's like the other mode is like, let's say you decide to write a post on the beta framework, right?
Yeah.
You're going to kind of select books and then even select maps of meaning and then read that with a specific eye towards that project,
Yeah.
which means that which kind of, it sucks because it kind of takes the magic away from just like the pure emergence and like loving the reading of like maps of meaning and without, you know, like working on the post, right? So you might want to break them up into two separate activities too, you know, like
Yeah.
just
There is no
it,
pure joy of reading maps of meaning.
it
It is dense, dude.
it's
interesting.
It's
and
just something you
thought-provoking,
got to
but
just get through.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, you know, it's one of those books I feel like that'll really reshape for like, you know, 10 or 20 years down the line how you see the world or think about things. Kind of like what Sapiens was for me, you know.
Well, it's like my
that was
selection
a good book.
intention. Yeah, oh yeah, that is a great book. It's like my selection intention for Maps of Me was why we choose chaos in our own lives. That's my main intention. I have other questions and
Okay.
intentions, but
So
so
that's
you
kind of,
see, I'm
that
kind
fits
of being
the
split.
yeah, that fits.
Chaos, you know.
Yeah, that fits though the question of the descent, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you were talking about earlier. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like it. I'm sure. Yeah, something's gonna happen at some point here soon where it's just gonna be clear. Like for me, it was with the Antinet book. It was just like I was like oscillating between two routes for I don't know, a month or two at least, and then like at some point I'm just like, you know what, like my heart, go where the passion is and the heart is, as trite as that sounds. You know, the other way is to you know, pick something based on where you think the market is, and
Yeah.
you know, that's what the marketers say.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of truth to that as well, but I don't think the truth is long term in that, you know, honestly, because
Nah.
it's just like
You're gonna suck at it eventually.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
ultimately, you're gonna suck at it. I like
Yeah.
Naval. What's his name? Naval Reckon or whatever. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Ravikant. Yeah, Naval Ravikant.
Yeah, him. Where he says like, you know, figure out your what's it called, specific knowledge. You know,
Yes,
it's
yes.
what you are good at, like, you know, the two or three things that take you beyond everyone else, because you know you can't, you know, you're going to be competing on one thing, being the best of that. You're not going to be the best. Someone's always going to be better, blah blah. But so it is kind of like that, and I think that's where, you know, the Antinet is like a powerhouse, really a personal, it's like a personal secret weapon for people if you really want to be the thought leader, so to speak, in something. And I guess that's a perfect example. I want to be a thought leader in creativity, this outside the academic world, because you know, I get it, I love their theoretical stuff, but applied, a lot of it's bullshit, and the way they apply it to business is real bullshit. It's like they're just circle jerking each other, you know, at the Harvard Business School and the school I went to, which is the best known creativity research, has the largest creativity research library in the world. You know, people from all over the world go to it. They all circle jerk each other. Seriously, intellectually circle jerk. So it's just and I don't see any innovation. And then everybody down, you know, on LinkedIn yesterday, I was reading something pissed me off, and it was like they were going off on Seth Godin because he, you know, where it was like, I guess he's writing a book on or he just released a book about something about creativity, and they're like pissed off. And like they're writing in this about like he doesn't know what he's talking about, serious research and creativity, blah blah blah. And one guy was like, sometimes I feel like we should you know, stand up more, you know, and let them know what the experts are, which is the number one thing that they say you shouldn't do. Expertise kills creativity, right? And so I wrote back into the thread, this is how I am. I said, oh great, gatekeepers, you know, it's like
gatekeepers on creativity.
yeah, we're not smart enough for you guys to tell us how we should be thinking. And I finally put, because the guy was an organizational psychologist, is like, unless you have cognitive science in your title, you should shut the fuck up. So
making friends.
Yeah, well, hey, what is it? Be contrarian. I'm naturally contrarian. You got to prove. You got to prove your model, your framework, your ideas, that you've got to prove them to me. I'm not going to just take them at face value. If you prove them, then I stand behind. I'm like, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. This lady knows what she's talking about. I'd be behind you, but I don't like pseudo intellectualism. Either be a serious intellectual that can do their research and has the the kindness to treat other human beings like, hey, let's see what you have to say here. There's the truth, and and then there's opinion. And when I see an intellectual or someone, when I'm saying intellectual, he's saying he's an intellectual. He's saying he's the expert.
Self-labels.
Yeah, self-labeled intellectual. It's downplaying someone like Seth Godin, and I'm not a Seth Godin fan at all. When you do that, it's like, it makes you're an asshole, in my opinion. So I'm going to be a little bit of an asshole back.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sorry, Messiah, that I did not respond in love. The Antinet.
No, it's totally fine to be contrarian.
If it's got substance,
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The why don't you show the your camera, pan it to into your Antinet over there in the corner.
Unfortunately, I pulled it up. Well, that's my Zettelkasten.
What is that one? Is that your index?
Zettel. No, that's my Zettel, which I should relabel on Antinet, but that's the Zettel.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
And then I have the other two over here.
Oh yeah.
On the top is my term box, because these got sold out. Thanks a lot, Scott, when you told people where to buy them. Literally, after you did that, they went out.
I can't find them anymore. Yeah, I know. I keep saying it. Like I want to make fireproof and waterproof ones. Because it's like always. Cool. Yeah, it's just like the fireproof and waterproof cabinets that they sell online are like $1,000 to $3,000, and I'm like, God, like getting it custom made.
Yeah, when you were talking about that, that was one of my concerns in the beginning. I was like, oh man, I write all these thoughts down. And same with my journals, my creative writing. I can't tell you how many, over the 20 years, I've lost hundreds or thousands of pieces of writing from moving. A young guy throwing stuff in a trash bag and, to carry out to the car and actually throw it in the trash because I thought it was trash, when in reality it was supposed to be all my writing books in there. House fires every day. So I have had that concern before about man, what about if I do something like he has over there, a volume of my intellect captured?
I've said it, and I've wrote this past week, like the chapter on it is about analog, and that's one of the things that was in there is like the perceived cons of analog. And you can like throw them in a fireproof, but the fireproof and waterproof is like $1,000 or $2,000 to buy that stuff. It's like the price of a computer, right? There is, it's like there, but then at the other end of the other argument though against it, it's like, well, it's actually you're really stamping that knowledge by writing it down into your head, into your mind. So it's like, it does, as much as it does kind of live in the box, a lot of it lives in your mind. And where in digital, it's just like you're putting it in digital, and you're probably like at a certain point, you just like never will open it again. You never open it again to, and it almost, digital is almost, because it's not tangible and you can't see it, it's almost even more of a black box, and throwing it more down the drain and losing it than physical, because you just can't see it in the digital form. But
right here, I have Strumera. That was my professor. It is true. I mean, because I've done not this, but I've always written notes and I'm very selective. I remembered this, and it was relevant to something I was thinking about the other day. This one, this goes under Christianity. It talks about Orthodox view of theology. The split of 1054 when the Eastern split from the Western Christian Church.
Of the Catholic.
Yeah. There was Orthodox. There was 5 churches, and when they split, Rome became the Western Church, and the other 4 became the Orthodox Church. But,
Eastern Orthodox.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about that is it's like this was imprinted on me a long time ago, something my professor said. And so I have this little reference, Stromera. It doesn't come from a book. I remember it from my 20s. He talks about, because it's so interesting. He's like, Latin, and he drew it on the board, is, they're very legalistic. The Latin, they're legalistic. The Latin culture, right? Rome was legalistic. So their church is going to be legalistic. The Eastern Orthodoxy, Greek, was philosophical. So they're going to be kind of a checkered box. You can move in and out of the box, with God, and views of Christianity, right? Where the Latin, they're very boxed in. It's very legalistic. No, God is not this, it's this, and then the Syriac church, which was part of the original church, they're very organic. They viewed God as like tree and things like that. They're very spiritual. It's a very spiritual side. So if you read like Septuagint, and then you go to a Septuagint is the Greek translation of the Bible, what they consider the closest to what Christ really said, because it's closest, because all of his followers. But the Syrian Christian church is very organic, very like God is earth. I mean, because they're out in the fucking real desert, and so God to them is nectar from the tree, to shade from the tree. That's how they explain God, right? So it's very beautiful. So I remember that shit from 20 years ago. So I agree.
Did you write it down at the time? Is that what helped you remember it, or were you taught it or something in a notebook? Or
no, it's very powerful. No, I remember him writing it on the board.
On the board,
and I was like, that's part. And I copied it. I accepted it. And then I worked with it in other frameworks. Like even in marketing, and stuff. So, yeah, I agree with you that the things that matter, you will always remember.
Yeah.
Period. So, trying to figure out where to put that back, but yeah, I'm happy, dude.
Yeah. So you have the you have the bibliography box over there too.
Yeah. So I have the bibliography is back over there, hidden behind that checkered box on top.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then down here on the left is my index, the one that's in there. And I do it basically like you did. You do. I do the comma or the colon, and then it maps back over to like specific cards. And I'm starting to get that point where on the creativity one, I'm starting to have to go, okay, this is going to be its own index card with numbering, because I can't hold under the creativity C column. I'm filling up that part, the C column, the C card already, right?
Yeah. So you're creating a dedicated like creativity card, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the index. Yeah, in the index that points to it. Yeah. Nice.
And then I, have
do that one.
Just kind of just to show people,
2/4. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it goes to, is that on the same side? 4A1.
Yeah, 4A1.
I'm carrying that off of this. I wanted the diagram to go with my actual writing.
Yep.
And then I go to, I went even more. I'm developing that diagram, like you said, that mental model. We think in pictures, right, and images and symbols in our brain. So it's better. And then
it's so hard to diagram stuff, dude. Like you have to really understand something to diagram it. Like it took me like, I don't know how many, 4 or 5 months to like understand the Antinet enough to like diagram it, and like create 3 boxes,
Yeah. Well, that's because how we chunk information in our brain for long term, right? Is we images, symbols. That's how we create new mental models too, and test original mental models. And you can see whiteout, like you were talking about earlier. I scratch things out because I'm too lazy to go over and get the whiteout, and I just go ahead and write it, scratch it out and write it. So that's 4A 2. So I'm
Yep.
still continuing that model. And,
Yeah.
on the back of a card, I started a
Yep.
thing and I said, oh, fuck that. And I turned around and then I did it the way I
Oh, yeah.
wanted to. Right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I don't throw cards away because I make a mistake. So you
Yeah,
taught me
exactly.
that. And
Yeah.
then,
And Lumen even wrote on some like from time to time on the back of his cards, like
and then
that's another.
then there's 4A3. So I'm continuing that thought because and not in a back, not like, I have one in here that shows, oh, that's the back of the card, to continue the thought. These are actual individual thoughts, but they're all talking around chaos and creativity. So the first one was chaotic creativity versus chaotic destruction. That was 4. Then 4A1 is artist in ascent and descent cycle, chaos and creativity, right? That's 4A1. Then 4AB is artist creative cycle of reintegration as art into society, right? And these are all my thoughts. And then I have, 4A3. And now I get into a new
kind of like branch, sub branch, stem.
Well, 26, 12, 5. So I was on the 4, 4-1, 4A, 4-2.
Oh, yeah,
4,
yeah. Yep, exactly. So that's this kind of like a new stem,
So now I'm talking about memory and artist influences on society. Right.
Yep.
So, and then.
Yeah, and you can see like this is kind of going to be like continue to branch and or build out. Could probably be a chapter in a book or something, or like
Yeah, and I put a little continue just to offset. So that's now 2612/5B for back. So that is one continuous card, like you said, right?
Yeah. I've done that too before. Yeah.
And I'm doing the, when there's underlining and connecting to a different card somewhere else, all that connects to this.
Like a remote link, I call them. A remote branch or because it's cool is like these are all links. These are like because it uses the structure, that like every card is essentially linked to the next card and its neighboring card, which is kind of how human memory works, and so it's like the entire thing is, it's kind of like how human memory works. It's like it's called like associative chaining, everything is like associatively chained to one another, yet then the entire chain also links to remote links. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So then I have a lot of questions. I also have a question box. You can't see it. I literally have questions all day. So this is like, how does a person judge the value of a place to go? And I know that's in a psychology thing. And I kind of was reading the Peterson Maps of Meaning, right? So I have that. And this is 2612/6. And then I have my little diagram trying to help me understand it. But these are my thoughts. But then I read something that was like, oh, that fits my thought, but that is direct. So only green cards are excerpts for me. White cards are me, my thoughts. If I'm excerpting or I'm reformulating a thought from someone else. So if it goes on here, it has to be not that like I have original thought, but it has to be a reflection that's original to me, right?
Yeah.
So it's my delineator.
And so the green is essentially like it's very, very closely inspired by what you were reading. Yeah, I see. And then
this is
bottom,
literally excerpt.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that looks like a reformulation. You've kind of reformulated it.
Oh yeah, now that I think about it. So reformulation or excerpt go on green cards. So this is a reformulation of the Peterson. So it's 2612/6A1. Although the question was a question I had, and then I read and I found, I was reading for that question, and then I found it, and then I continue.
You've what is it called, priming? You primed your mind, essentially, and you've primed it. That's the beautiful thing. It's like by writing by hand, is you hold so much more in your mind to look for when in your reading.
Exactly.
It's like that's why Lumen was able to read differently, is because he stamped it, he like neuro imprinted it into his mind.
So I've got like 3 cards back to back. Probably I can tell it's 3 different days. because usually I stay, I almost kind of will go into that linear path of thought after reading for that day. And so it'll be that number 6A or 6A1, 6A2, 6A, whatever. So this is 6A1, then it goes to 26, 12, 7, and then 26, 12, 8A1 are all green cards. That tells me those are 3 different days that I came across something interesting, selective from the Peterson book enough to reformulate it or write it completely down, right?
Yeah.
And then it's interesting, 26, 12, 8A2 is now I'm going into what perception is. But it's not a reformulation, it's my thoughts, because obviously over here in Peterson, this is not Peterson, this is IP, this is intro, because I haven't done a long time, to psychology. So this talks about perception, learning, memory. This is literally an excerpt quote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the entire thing.
Then, nice. So then 26A2, 2612/8A2 is me, not reformulating, but my perspective of how it affects creativity, or what I believe it affects creativity.
Yeah, your reflection on it.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah.
And then I go into a little, this is me trying to understand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand my thoughts and everything around. Dude, I'm telling you, man, this coming across this, dude, I can't tell you
I
how
love it.
I'm just so excited about the possibility, the potentiality of this.
Yes, it's game changing.
It is game changing.
The cool thing is, it's because like when you sit down to write the post, or when create anything, or even if you don't, like even if you just want it to be stamped in your mind, it's like, it's not, like I don't necessarily need to like, push an agenda that everyone needs to like produce. Some people just need to understand more, but like, let's say you do turn it into a piece of writing, you've pre-processed so many of your thoughts, not only just like in the short term by putting it on paper and drawing it, but also in the long term by letting it ruminate and find more and more, ideas. By the time it gets to the paper, it's going to just be, people are going to be able to tell that you're not just sitting down, at your computer and busting at a blog post, like this is like, it's really cool.
As a marketer, SEO, and like whenever I've wanted to do research on topics for SEO for a blog post I was going to write, I was just blown away. Like it's gotten to the point where, someone wins the excerpt, someone wins the first place, and every blog post underneath, every search engine result after that is literally, I can almost compare them, say they basically have just circle jerked each other's ideas. There's nothing new here. And so that's another reason why I don't really use Google or anything for searching. I literally go look it up in the library or literally journal articles. I mean, I guess if I'm looking up toothpaste, I'm going to go on the internet. But if it's anything creativity wise related, even if it's like, oh, that's an interesting art, I'll read it. But it's all regurgitation. It's like no one's putting out anything new. You cannot do this and not come out with a new vision in that domain of knowledge. It is impossible. I know that just from the little I've done it, that if you continue to do this, there is no way that you will not be a thought leader, a true thought leader in your whatever you're trying to be. That's what I'm trying to do, that's what you're trying to do, you will be a thought leader in your domain if you do this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, man. Well, I think we're like 2 hours in. This was awesome. I think people are, maybe we'll do another one. People are, I bet, a lot of people really get what we're talking about, and I think this was hugely valuable. This was a ton of fun for me to like sit and just noodle with you on this stuff, because we share the very same perspectives and stuff. But I think I'm looking forward to you being a thought leader in your domain, and you building your own cult and being your own messiah. I'll continue carrying the torch in the Antinet space and teaching it. But it's so man, I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's very crossover.
I know.
Between we're very similar on what, self-reflexivity and everything. But I really encourage you to start a group, like again, I'm not going to go on whatchamacallit. It's just not a place that I like to hang out for,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything. So I'd
Reddit,
love for you
Reddit
to
has
do
a lot
that.
of trolls. Reddit
It
has a lot of
does.
trolls,
It does.
Um,
So
the
that would be
Antinet
cool.
community is pretty cool because I just kick the trolls out. But actually, we really haven't had to kick anyone out. But yeah, the Antinet Reddit community is pretty cool. But I think it would be cool to have what you're talking about is have like a very like an awesome private community where we get online and it's like kind of a group of intellectuals just really interested in about developing knowledge and
Yeah.
growing and supporting one another. And so
Cross-pollinating ideas and everything.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Why don't I'll end the recording now, but I think then we can chat real quick before we head off.
Okay.
But yeah, man, Lane, I'm super grateful that you hopped on here, and I think a lot of people that are super new to the Antinet, like it's awesome to see someone like you that has really just done a deep dive into it and actually have started to develop your knowledge and see it for yourself instead of just me holding my phone over and showing everyone. It's cool to see someone else do it as well.
I
So yeah,
couldn't
very
find it. I
grateful for
was
you.
this close to sending you my old tripod that actually, when you pull it up, you can tilt it and put the phone in it and it shines down.
Oh yeah.
Without you having to hold it and do this. You can actually L it over a table. It's a table, you can put it over a table or just do it regular. But yeah, I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. Here, I'm gonna end this recording now. Let's see that. Stop.